Hawk keeps walking. He doesn't look back. He just waits, half listening for the sound he was told is coming. The scream Flora couldn't take. The carriage crash Philip says is inevitable. Splintering wood. The end of another weekly problem solving itself. Okay, he mutters to no one. I kind of feel bad for the horses. He exhales. Should have just listened to the prospector, Phil. He doesn't stop walking. A couple hours earlier, everyone has urges. Everyone builds routines. Coffee in the morning. That's from before Elseway. Hawk finishes making instant coffee using water heated over the campfire, the bitter steam barely cutting through the familiar pull of his inventory checklist already nagging at him. The urge feels as primal as hunger, but stranger. It didn't come from his old life. It came with waking up here. Every morning, he has to account for his possessions. Not because they change, most of them don't, but because his brain refuses to move on until he does. The same items, the same order. The same quiet reassurance that nothing has slipped away while he wasn't looking. He wonders what waking up in his car on his reset day will be like. Will he remember where he was? Does everything really reset? He puts the ashtray back into the stash drawer and pauses. I hope so. The bag that earned him the nickname Hawkeyes is running low, and he'd rather not find out what kind of person he becomes when it's gone. Whatever this is, relife, respawn, redo, reset, start over, one of the 100 other names people use, he hopes it happens soon. His maple and brown sugar instant oatmeal hasn't even cooled yet when he feels it. The same kind of pull as the checklist, but different, less specific, more distant. A vague sense of direction, like something out there has just noticed him. Flora, Prospector Phil, and Hawk sit together, splitting a quiet morning breakfast, the fire popping softly between them as the Elseway waits. Then the sensation sharpens. Not loud, not urgent, just precise, like something in the distance has finally lined up with him. Hawk catches a flicker of reflexive light on the horizon, the kind that doesn't belong to sunrise or weather. He stands, already moving. He crosses to the garage, digs through an old workbench, and comes back with a pair of camouflage binoculars that look like they've survived 3 different lives. The prospector notices Hawk shift his weight and sighs immediately. All he has to do is grab the reins himself, slow the carriage to a trot, end it clean. He doesn't. Another cycle, the prospector mutters. Another carriage. So the carriage goes over the cliff. This happens every week. Not worth saving. Not worth saving. Hawk snaps. What's not worth saving? He's entitled, the prospector says flatly. Rude, demanding. Smells funny. Hawk looks at him. Him or you? The carriage isn't really moving that fast, about a jog, but Hawk still catches up on his motorcycle with ease. He's careful coming off the path. Smooth blacktop gives way to packed dirt, then loose gravel, the transition humming up through the tires as he pulls alongside. At this speed, the bike doesn't like it. The ground can't quite decide what it wants to be, and neither can the traction. Hawk glances over at the boy clinging stiffly inside the carriage. Hey kid, he calls out. Why don't you jump out? I am no goat, the boy snaps. I am Prince Aurelius. Hawk squints. Okay, Prince Goat, you see the reins? Those ropes? Just grab them and pull. You want me to do labor? The gravel shifts at the same moment. Hawk stands up on the pegs, letting the bike move beneath him as it skids just enough to make the point for him. Fast is easy, Hawk calls over the engine. Slow is hard. You can't countersteer at this speed. The words get eaten by wind and vibration. The young man only side-eyes him, clearly having no idea what Hawk is talking about. Hawk eases back behind the carriage, nudging the bike onto the path again. Pavement under the tires now. Better. Almost stable. Still wrong. The familiar sway creeps in anyway, that floating feeling like the road is only pretending to be solid. He feels the rumble strips before he fully sees them. The warning thrum runs up through the frame, the same shiver as any highway hazard. Hawk looks up. The road ahead is thinning. Ending. Looks like the road is ending, he yells. But the engine swallows most of it. That's when Hawk does the math. Jog speed. 1 carriage. A few seconds, if he parks it right. The bike nearly loses traction again as the tires hammer across the rumble strips. For a split second, it feels like floating, like the ground forgets it's supposed to be there, and then the vibration snaps everything back into place. Hawk accelerates past the carriage, rides ahead just far enough, brakes hard, drops the kickstand and leaves the bike where it stands. He jogs back, the ground under his boots turning into sidewalk with each step. By the time he reaches the carriage, he's already smiling. "All right," he says, breath steady. "Let's talk." He opens the carriage door and climbs inside. Once he's in, Hawk pulls the door shut. Prince Aurelius stiffens. "Why do you care?" Hawk settles in, glancing out through the open slats. "So are you going to steer this thing?" he asks. "Or are you just here for the view?" The cliff edge creeps closer, minutes away at this speed. Hawk squints at it, measuring distance without thinking. "So you don't do labor," he says. "And you definitely don't jump." "The wish is father to the thought," Hawk adds casually. "Do not talk about my father," the Silver Spoon Prince snaps. "He is a better man than you've ever known." Hawk says. "Take it easy. I never met the guy." "Well, you will," the boy says. "He'll come and find us here and save us. Soon." Hawk watches the cliff creeping closer, the edge gnawing at the road like it's impatient. For just a second, he could swear the kid looks older when he talks about his father, like the words stretch him into something heavier, more solid. "What will your father say if you're not here when he comes?" Hawk asks. "Won't he want you to be there when..." He reaches over and unhooks the carriage door, letting it swing loose. "Tell you what," Hawk says. "I'll even leave the door open. All you've got to do is hop out or grab the reins. Your choice." "Yes," the prince says stiffly. "I should be there, but..." Hawk exhales slowly. "Okay, no worries then." He nods once, like the decision's already made. "I'll take your body home and wait for him," Hawk says, "because saving yourself was beneath you. No big deal. Least I can do for a father, just in case he shows up before your rebirth." Hawk turns and starts walking away, doing his best not to look back. 10 minutes later. "You mean to tell me," Hawk says, "that even blindfolded, the horses turn just right so only you fall out of the carriage? Every time?" The prince hesitates. "They weren't always good at it," he mutters. "Sometimes they still go over with me." Hawk nods slowly. "You know what that means, right?" The boy frowns. "What?" "The horses are smarter than you." Silence stretches. "I guess it's nice," Hawk adds, "that you don't tell whoever's putting the blindfolds on, since it's pointless anyway." Another 10 minutes later. "I can't believe you jumped so late," Hawk says, breath still tight. "I almost went down just trying to lift you back up the cliff." The boy doesn't answer. He just clings there, scraped and shaking, knuckles white. "Hey," Hawk says, softer now. "You had to be strong to hang off the edge like you did." The prince lifts his chin visibly. "Well, yes," he says stiffly. "I didn't need your help. It was just beneath me to lift my own weight." Hawk studies him for a second. "If that's so," Hawk says, "I was almost feeling bad for what comes next, Your Highness." He gestures toward the motorcycle and motions to the back seat. "Guess what?" Hawk says. "You get to ride bitch." "What?" "Only the softest and most precious get to sit back there," Hawk says. "Royal treatment." And Hawk takes him back to camp. The first thing he notices is the fire, burning low, so he drops his gear and grabs a few logs, setting to work with steady, practiced swings. The rhythm settles him. The sound carries across camp. Flora is nearby, beating dust from a rug and warming a cleaner by the fire, focused and methodical, like she always is. Hawk is nearly finished chopping when Flora calls out across the camp. "Can one of you strong lads help me get this off the rope?" Hawk snorts without looking up. "I don't know why you even bother keeping that cabin clean," he calls back. "I gave you the master bedroom in the house." He wipes his hands on his jeans. He's been living in the apartment above the garage anyway, perfectly fine with it. He even offered Philip a spot in the garage instead of that ragged tent. But there was no chance he was letting Flora live in the dirty hut she calls a house. Hawk can't even stand up straight in most of it. As the horses pull the carriage into camp, Hawk notices something else. They veer immediately toward Philip's campsite and stop, lowering their heads to drink from a trough already filled with water. That trough is normally empty. Aurelius steps forward, his voice snapping into a tone Hawk recognizes instantly, the voice of wealth, of aristocracy, of someone used to giving instructions without questions. "Yes, Sir Hawk," the prince says. "You've obviously chopped enough logs for now. You may go assist Miss Flora." Hawk looks at him. "It looks heavy," Hawk says calmly, "but Flora already has the cart set. All you've got to do is pull on the rope. It'll release. Then hold tight and let it down easy. Aurelius straightens, nodding sharply. Yes. And the faster you do that, he says, cheeks coloring just slightly as he glances at Flora, the faster Miss Flora will have the assistance she has requested, and I will have secured completion of the task with those suited for it. Hawk just watches him, and lets the moment hang. That's how it's going to be, Hawk says, slamming the axe hard into the biggest log. The sound cracks through camp. He turns and walks straight toward the rope, shoulders pumping as he passes Aurelius. The audacity, Aurelius mutters. Hawk doesn't slow. I'll tell you what, he says. Ask me what kind of man raises a child to not help a woman. I did secure help, Aurelius snaps. As per your helping. Hawk snorts. That's barely even outsourcing. Aurelius scowls. Out what-eyeing? I'll have you know, Aurelius says, stiffening. My father did raise me to help. I've seen him help my mother plenty of times. He marches over to the cart, gesturing sharply. Miss Flora, step aside. Hawk meets him there. For a brief second, they're shoulder to shoulder, both hands on the rig, both trying to steer. Hawk waits until the tension peaks, then releases the rope. The cart settles. In a huff, Aurelius pushes it the rest of the way into the cabin himself. After the work is done, Hawk starts learning more of the boy's story over a late lunch. The prince comes from a villa. Everyone there swore loyalty to his family generations ago. Prospector Phil fills in the rest. They don't hate him. They just can't stand his immaturity, or the way he demands things like obedience is the same as respect. Hawk sees it before the kid does. He notices Flora. He notices the way Aurelius looks at her. Just a half second too long, just a little too focused, before the boy even realizes he's doing it. Flora, of course, is a goody two-shoes, and she's a lady. She treats him politely, almost kindly, almost like a prince. Hawk calls it out immediately. The kid bristles, denies it. Straightens his posture like that might undo what his eyes already gave away. Hawk doesn't push. Not yet. He watches instead, uses logic, uses the boy's own words, or sometimes just the quiet threat of walking away. And in the watching, Hawk notices something else. Whenever the boy talks about his father, his spine straightens, his tone shifts. He does the right thing. Whatever conscience Aurelius has, it lives there. Maybe I can use that, Hawk thinks. Flora remembers the early days. Back when they first arrived, when people still talked openly about the prince's father. Another prince, not a king, and how he would come save them. She used to listen to the guards' stories back then. Everyone did. Back when hope still sounded organized. She suggests gently that his father must have been gathering resources for a long time. Preparing. Planning. Imagine the wonders he'll bring when he finally shows up. Hawk snorts. Yeah, right. Later, Hawk tries a different angle. Your dad could ride a horse, right? He says, casual. Drive a carriage? He knew how things worked? Yes, the prince says without hesitation. Then you should too. Somehow, between that and the quiet threat of Hawk walking away mid-sentence, the kid starts doing whatever needs doing. He learns fast. Too fast. Within a few hours, he's riding horses in clean figure eights, wrestling an oversized buggy like it weighs nothing, showing off without realizing he's showing off. Hawk watches the way he keeps glancing toward Flora and doesn't say anything at first. Then, like he's commenting on the weather, Hawk says, You know what they say about trying the same thing and expecting different results? The prince stops walking and looks at him, genuinely confused. I never liked that saying anyway, he says. It's like, the customer's always right. Hawk snorts. Exactly. Flora turns him down gently, with modesty, with the quiet certainty of someone who doesn't want more, because she already knows who she is. She's happy. She's mature. And she doesn't bend just because someone expects her to. Later, Hawk watches the kid struggle with that. Really struggle. Straightway to a woman's heart, Hawk says finally, dry as dust, is showing her how much of a servant she'll be around you, really lets her know how you see her as a person. The kid doesn't even realize what's happening at first. Then something shifts. Suddenly, he's not a prince anymore. He's just a younger guy who's attracted to a girl, trying to impress her, realizing slowly and painfully that maybe the rules he was handed don't work at all. After sunset, the sky still glows, nebula bright, brighter than any night. Hawk remembers back home. The day stretches longer than it should. The prince barely stops to eat. Only when the horses need water does he finally sit, taking a few distracted bites before getting back up again, too determined to rest. One horse. One carriage. Then both horses together, over and over until the rhythm becomes habit. When he finally drops down near the fire, he's soaked in sweat, a wide smile of accomplishment still clinging to his face. "That didn't take too long," Hawk says. "Yeah," the prince replies. "That was actually a one-skill trick. But the abilities must run in the family, like you said." Hawk gives him a look. "Abilities? Hey, don't look at me," the boy says. "Those are the new words. Training. Authority." Hawk hands him something warm. "Well then," Hawk says, "try a s'more. Congratulations." The prince blinks at it. "A s'more? I just sat down. I haven't even had dinner yet." He takes a bite. His eyes widen. "Sweet Zeus," he says, "you're an alchemist." The next morning, Hawk follows him home. The villa sits like a small community pretending it isn't one. Its own roads, its own rhythm, guards standing in the same spots doing the same jobs they've always done. Nothing moves unless it's supposed to. The main house is massive. Too massive. When Hawk steps forward, he hits something solid and invisible and stumbles back. "What is this?" Hawk says. "A clear wall? What kind of mime trick is this?" The prince turns, already tired. For just a second, his face looks older. Worn in a way it wasn't before, like something heavy has settled behind his eyes. "Sorry," he says quietly. "I haven't had anyone come to my respawn point in a long time." Hawk feels it then, the wall loosening, popping out of place, and he stumbles forward, landing inside. The prince doesn't wait to see if Hawk's okay. He's already drifting inward, distant, moving through the space like someone following a routine he didn't choose. Like someone ready for his daily nap. Aurelius doesn't even make it to the bed. He sits, exhales once, and the moment stretches, then he's asleep. Deep. Heavy. The kind of sleep that belongs to someone who hasn't truly rested in years, but insists he does it every day. His words trail off as he goes. "Sorry again," he'd said quietly, mid-yawn. "I haven't had to like and subscribe before either." Hawk steps back outside. That's when he notices the guard. Not pacing. Not watching Hawk. Just standing there, in the same spot, like he's been standing there for a very long time. "You don't have to do that," Hawk says, nodding toward the post. "He's asleep." The guard doesn't move. "I know. You don't have to bow or stand or whatever this is." "I don't," the guard says. "I choose to." Hawk waits. Finally, the guard speaks again. "His father saved my son's life." Hawk turns slightly. "How?" "He couldn't swim," the guard says. "Fell into the river during a festival. Everyone froze." A faint smile touches his face. "The old prince didn't. Jumped in fully dressed, nearly drowned himself dragging the boy out." "That'll do it," Hawk says. "He didn't stop there," the guard adds. "After that, he took every child in the villa down to the water. Made sure they all learned, said it wasn't charity if you didn't prevent the next accident." Hawk exhales slowly. And for the first time, he understands why the man is still standing there. "That doesn't mean I serve the boy," the guard says. "Or kneel. Or enter when he tells me to." He glances toward the villa. "But when he's home, it still feels right to stand here." Hawk nods. He gets it now, or at least most of it. "He has flaws," the guard continues. "Childish ones. Loud ones." "No argument there," Hawk says. "But once," the guard says, quieter now, "before things got messy, I asked him about the stores, the food, the drink. I said it would all be redelivered anyway." "And?" Hawk asks. The guard looks at him. "He looked at me like his father used to, dead serious, and he said, 'If you can promise me, 100%, that it will reset.' Then I won't wait for my father's permission." Hawk frowns. "Could you?" "No," the guard says. "Not back then." They stand in that for a moment. When he's not demanding, the guard adds, he's actually smart, painfully so. But he's needy. He locks things away until they spoil. Food, wine, alcohol. A small shrug. Barely touches any of it. "Ingredients," Hawk says. The guard nods. "Exactly. Possession matters more than use." "And people left," Hawk says. "Some of us moved to town. Percival," the guard replies. "We're not trapped." Hawk glances back toward the villa, toward the door he'd walked through without permission. "He's surprised you got in," the guard says. That's when Hawk steps inside again, and sees it. Rooms packed tight, shelves stacked deep, wine laid down in careful rows, food enough to last months, maybe longer, all sealed away, all waiting, even though every reset day Aurelius won't allow anyone inside unless they agree to the old rules. the old ways. Subjects, service. Later, when the prince wakes, Hawk doesn't bother easing into it. So that's how it works, Hawk says, gesturing toward the villa. You can just block people out. They never complained before, Aurelius says. It was always the same. Hawk lets him keep talking. They decided they didn't need to serve me, the boy continues, so they stopped doing their job, so I stopped providing for them. His voice lifts at the end, defensive, brittle. For a moment, his face looks younger, smaller. Hawk doesn't argue. Instead, he steps outside. He doesn't interrogate anyone. He doesn't make announcements. He just helps. He lifts a crate someone's been struggling with. Carries water without asking why it's needed. Holds a door. Listens more than he talks. People start talking anyway. One guard mentions how the old prince used to sit on the steps during feasts, boots off, laughing loud enough that the whole villa heard it. How he poured his own wine and passed it down the line instead of waiting for it. Another remembers how, when supplies came in, the old prince never locked them away first. He walked the grounds and asked what people needed before anyone asked him. He said generosity works better when it's seen, the guard tells Hawk. Said if you hide it, it just turns into fear. Hawk stands there, hands dusty, saying nothing. But the indecision settles and becomes a decision. Someone else laughs quietly. He once gave away half the food meant to last a week because a storm hit the lower paths, a voice says. Said he'd rather explain emptiness than explain indifference. Every story ends the same way. He showed up. Every once in a while, Hawk notices Aurelius nearby. Not interrupting, not correcting, just listening, like he's trying to remember something he was told once and never quite understood. Hawk catches the prince staring at a woman across the yard. That's not appropriate, Aurelius says quickly, stiffening like he's broken a rule only he enforces. Hawk grins. Funny, you didn't like that whole definition of insanity thing either, trying the same thing over and over, expecting different results. It is wrong, the prince snaps. Sure, Hawk says easily. Still doesn't work, though. Hawk doesn't say be generous. Instead, he asks, if your father showed up tomorrow, what would he actually see? The question lands heavier than any command. Hawk gestures toward the carts. You want to be useful? Start there, not as a prince, as a person. Aurelius hesitates, then, quietly, I can try. No one rushes forward. No one cheers. Some people don't even look up. They ignore the single cart of party goods he lets them have. One cart? Hawk says, glancing back toward the villa. You've got rooms of this stuff. This is just the start of the party, Aurelius says, defensive again. I can only do so much alone. A few people look like they might help. Then they look to the head wall guard instead. Hawk notices the prince blushing again, watching another woman pass. Maybe a private dinner's more your speed, Hawk says mildly. I love my subjects, Aurelius says quickly. But there's a line I cannot cross. Hawk nods. Good, he says. Then don't cross it. He picks up a crate. Walk with me instead. Right, he says. Let me teach you how to outsource. Outsource what? Aurelius starts. Well, Hawk cuts in, already moving. How many of these do you think you could get to town and back? What follows isn't graceful, but Prince Aurelius accepts the challenge anyway. That's the premise of Hawk's idea, and mostly it works. They end up with a sort of train of carts. Awkward, mismatched, heavier than expected. The prince strains immediately. His hands blister. His breath comes sharp and uneven. Sweat soaks through clothes that were never meant for work. People stop and stare. Some laugh. Some don't know what to make of it. A couple of townsfolk step in without being asked. Then another. A guard takes the reins of a second cart. Someone yells from the crowd that they don't have to play his games. The line moves anyway. Slow. Steady. And the disbelief shifts into something quieter. On the road, the frontmost horse starts having trouble. The one Aurelius picked to lead because it looked the strongest. The most majestic. Hawk notices the gate before anything breaks. He checks the hooves and finds thick sand packed underneath. Unstable footing, wrong for pulling weight. The prince freezes. I messed up, he says. I chose a book by its cover. Picked wrong. Hawk doesn't hesitate. Things happen, he says. Mistakes happen. It's how you handle it that matters. He points to the sand under the horse's feet. Looks like desert footing. Loose. Slippery. Aurelius blinks. Gladiator ring, he says quickly. I knew that. I should have known. They switch horses, rearrange the loads. The carts start moving again. The prince doesn't say anything after that. He just puts his shoulder back into it, jaw tight, eyes forward. For the first time, he looks less like someone waiting to be rescued, and more like someone learning how to carry weight. His face looks older too. Just a little. After a quick pit stop to pick up Prospector Phil, they roll toward Elseway town. The view is still majestic, in that smashed-together shouldn't-work kind of way. Barns and huts. Melting igloos pressed up against cabins. Geodesic domes. Mansions. Houses that look almost like hawks. Trailers. Tents. Teepees. Everything in between, layered like the world never bothered to clean up after itself. They ride Slowking behind them, and Hawk starts to see the place the way the Prospector does. Not as streets, but as habits. The town isn't one town at all. It's a collection of spawn points people never quite left. A long, sagging house that used to be a college chapter sits crooked on its foundation. Still loud at odd hours. Still full of people who swear they're only staying a little longer. A block of shared rooms feels like a bachelor pad stretched too thin. Doors always open. Someone always bored enough to hop onto a cart just to see where it's going. Farther out, a war camp that never fully packed up. Tents replaced with walls. Discipline worn down into routine. People who know how to follow orders but don't want any more of them. They pass an old southern house, all white columns and patched floors. Once a hospital. Still full of people who drift in and out quietly, used to tending others without being asked. The prince points once and guesses wrong. "That place looks busy," he says. "That place looks stuck," Phil replies. Hawk squints at the route. "You just tanning the path now?" Phil snorts. "I said partygoers, not wherever all the women are now." "Good," Hawk mutters. "Then we avoid Birthing House Street," Phil says. "Too many expectations." A few people laugh. A few more climb aboard. Snacks get passed hand to hand. And without anyone announcing it, the carts stop feeling like an invitation and start feeling like a routine. They move slow on purpose now, calling out invitations as they go. There's a party. You can snack. You can drink on the way. A few people join out of impulse. A few more out of curiosity. Some because they recognize Hawk. Some because they don't recognize the prince at all anymore. A couple of cute women hop on without asking questions. They drink and laugh the whole way back to the villa. The carts fuller each block, the noise rising in layers instead of spikes. Hawk watches it happen without smiling. "Okay," he says quietly as the crowd thickens. "You've got their attention. You don't want people just talking." "So what?" the prince asks. Hawk thinks for a second. "Open the practice arena." The prince blinks. "We don't have gladiators." "Good," Hawk says. "Let everyone do talent shows." The words to impress the prince start to rise out of habit and then stop. They head back toward the villa with the crowd trailing behind them. The people who live there are dumbfounded. Open everything? A party? A talent show? 3 days later, the prince has changed styles completely. Too completely. He gives too much, too fast. The residents go from ignoring him to literally telling him to stop. "Enough," someone says, laughing. "You're going to burn through everything." They start rationing rooms just to keep things going, stretching events out, planning instead of reacting. Food, drink, space, all suddenly valuable again, not because they're locked away, but because people want them to last. And the ones who always drifted. The ones who never quite fit. The ones who wanted a role but didn't know how to ask. They step up. They help organize. They assign tasks. They quietly redirect him when generosity starts tipping toward debauchery. Not because he orders them to, but because, for the first time, he's trying to give everything away. And for the first time, people care enough to stop him from doing it wrong. He gives too much, too fast. They have to ration rooms just to keep things going. Word spreads through town, and soon the carts aren't enough. People follow on foot, laughing, carrying drinks, already planning their next party before this one ends. Hawk finds the prince in the courtyard, surrounded by a group of women, sharing grapes straight off the vine. "I just wanted to say," Hawk says, stopping a few steps back, "I'll see you around, before I head out." The prince brightens. "Hawk, no. Don't leave. You could switch your residency here. I already picked out a space for your house and garage, inside the walls. Flora and Prospector Phil can stay too." Hawk smiles, but it doesn't quite stick. Phil says big things are coming to our campsite, Hawk says. Something about the ground being too loaded, or charged, or whatever that means. He shrugs. It was hard enough convincing Flora to take my bedroom and leave that dirty hut. No way I'm dragging everyone again. The prince nods, already distracted by movement around him. Well, he says, lifting his cup, my reset feels like it should be any day now. We'll have the biggest party yet to celebrate. Hawk pauses. What does it feel like when reset's coming? The prince blinks. Oh, you're new? Wow, never had one. He thinks for a moment. It feels like someone has all your stuff, he says slowly, and you're waiting for them to bring it back. But instead of relief, it just keeps building. Pressure, expectation. Then you, Hawk wakes up groggy. Oh God, he mutters. How much did I drink last night? He looks around. Why am I still in my car?